Let's get creative and make some fancy socks.
Ugh, yeah, the world feels really hard right now. But when it feels so hard, I think it's important to look for the small moments of joy or whimsy in everyday moments. So today's whimsy comes in the form of embellished socks. That's right, we're embellishing socks. Why do you need these? You can do hard things wearing these socks. You can go to the dentist. You can drive in traffic for hours. You can sit in a boring meeting with your boss and they don't know you've got fancy socks on. You can attend an awkward social event. Nobody will know, unless your pants are too short. Anyhow, we are going to make some embellished socks today. I made 2 pairs at first, just to see how it would work out. And I love both of them. These are glued, these are sewn. I've got a jar of junk jewelry right here. I've got a bucket of beads, all different beads and things. I've got some of these gems. Maybe you've seen these at the thrift shop or the craft store. They're just like, they're just like plastic gems. I use smaller ones to glue on these socks and give them like a little, I call these my galaxy socks. I think they're so fun. All right, so we have some stuff to put on our socks. We have our socks. I have a bunch of socks here. So I've got some gem tack. You could also use fabric glue. This is great for attaching these little things to the sock or fabric. I've got a needle and thread. And I'm just going to dump out some jewelry, dump out some beads, and just have fun and make some crazy socks.
I'm going to start out by arranging my embellishments on my socks into a pattern or arrangement that I like. Some of these items will be glued and some will be sewn. This first larger piece is going to be glued on, so I'm using just a little solo cup and I'm going to stretch my sock over it. This will allow the larger piece to dry on stretched out fabric rather than puckering when I actually use the sock. And I'm just doing this to the next sock. I'm using a glass to stretch out this sock. Since I'm using a combination of gluing and sewing, I do recommend that you do several pairs of these socks because that way you can let the glue dry on one pair while you work on another. So now I'm just using some basic sewing skills to sew on my beads. Each bead is sewn on individually and then I tie a knot to make sure it's tight. And you keep going, sewing on all of your beads. So these little beads were sewn on, and things like this little charm was actually glued on. So this is a combination of sewn, and glued. And in my opinion, the sewing was a little bit of a pain in the neck. It's probably more sturdy than the glue. Now moving on to the next pair of socks. I'm going to use these black socks. Just starting with the first one. I'm going to dump out some of my jewels. So the first pair I did was a pretty random pattern. So on this pair, I'm going to try and do something a little bit more designed. That idea might go out the window if it turns out to be too hard. So we'll see. So I'm using a plastic cup just to stretch out the fabric of the sock a little bit so that when I'm wearing them, the gems won't fall off and they'll be able to stretch over my foot and my ankle. If you don't do this, they might pop off. They might pop off anyway. I don't know. I don't know how sturdy these are going to be, but you want to at least get a couple good wears out of them before they start falling apart. So we're stretching out the fabric a little bit, and you can push this up if you want, depending on where you want to start your gems. I'm tending to put them up here on the upper half. And I'm just going to make a little pattern. Okay, so this glue will show up on these black socks. If you use white socks or a lighter color sock, I'm not sure if the glue will show up as much. But for this color, it does tend to show, so you don't want to put too much glue on. You just want to put enough that it doesn't slip out underneath the gem. So you just pop the gem on there, gently tap it in, and we're ready for the next one. So I'm just going to go over here, do the next one. I think I'm going to do all the same color. See what happens. So there's a little bit of glue here. Just using my finger to pick it up. Cover it up as best I can. We're not going to be too perfect about this. These are just socks. It's not brain surgery. Okay, so I'm just going to sort of eyeball it. Tap the next one in. Beautiful. Now moving on to our next pair of socks. These are going to be black socks with pearl accents. So I'm going to look in my jar and find a bunch of things that are pearl or white. I'm going to gather all the
possibilities into this little cup. You can just stick it on here just to see what it'll look like. Just grabbing all the pearl stuff right now. I'm going to go through this little pile of beads, pick out some from here. I'm going to plan out our design a little bit. Grab some tools. And this is where I realize I need to take off all the backings for the earrings and get them ready to lay flat. Once you glue on your jewelry, it can be helpful to use a rubber band to keep everything in place while they dry. Once your gems are dry on one side, you can turn it over and do the other side. Now that all my gems have dried on the socks, I'm going to add some smaller beads and pearls using the sewing method. And because I'm on a roll, I'm just going to do one more pair. And here's a little review of all the socks we embellished today. I really like these. So cute. I think these make a great gift idea. And the price is right. I hope you found some inspiration with this video, and thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.